Welcome to Lead Your Life, the podcast for people who are seeking harmony in business and in life. My name is Debbie Heiser, and I'm an inner mastery and business mindset coach and the chief igniter here at the Lit Up Life. I feel an urgency to help people let go of past messaging so that they can make a lot of money doing what they love without sacrificing what they value most. Welcome. We're glad you're here.
Straight from the corners of my mind is where I find my sanity. It's a place, another land.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Lead Your Life with Debbie Heiser. My name is Debbie Heiser, and I help entrepreneurs make a lot of money doing what they love to do without sacrificing what's important to them. I do feel so called to help people build a lit up life so that they can enjoy what they're doing both as a profession and in their life, and the business becomes a conduit to helping them lead that life. So today we're going to talk about belief and this whole idea of believing in ourselves, because we've been really conditioned to not trust ourselves. We've been conditioned not to believe in ourselves. And this goes even to, I always talk about this as an example of how I kind of even didn't help my son build trust in himself. Like we would say, "Hey, where do you want to go to eat?" And he would say wherever he wanted to go. And then we're like, "Are you sure?" Or constantly questioning. Also, the other day I was over playing with my grandson and he wasn't hungry, so he wasn't ready to eat dinner. And I'm like, "Are you sure you don't want to eat dinner, right? Instead of playing Hungry Hippos." And sometimes they do that as a deflection because they don't want to stop playing the game. But I found myself asking him over and over again instead of like taking a couple of situations. I get that he's 3, and so sometimes we need to deflect them back to eating dinner instead of playing the game. But the whole point is that every time I question what he's saying to me or what my son was saying to me, I am telling him that I don't trust him. So, and particularly, as my son got older and so on and so forth. So we have learned not to trust ourselves. And so it's really important, I think, to talk about belief and belief in yourself. I have a lot of clients that I will say, borrow some of the belief that I have in you until you can believe in yourself to that point. Because of the fact that this imposter syndrome that people talk about, where you question, like, why would someone come to me for this service? Why would someone buy this product? Who am I to do these things, right? That's the imposter syndrome piece. And frankly, those are lies, because if you've been given this desire with an intentionality of serving people, helping people, doing the thing, then you're on an aligned path. Now, it's important to look at whether you're in alignment. And I will say a really telltale sign of not having belief or not trusting yourself is when you go to make a decision. I used to always say, "Okay, is this really like the universe telling me to do this?" Or for me, it was God. Like, is this God telling me to do this? Or is this because I want to do it? Well, I'm a firm believer that if there's a desire that's put into you that you're passionate about, that you don't have any niggles about, then that is the universe giving this to you. And so I have gone from seeking out a gazillion different people to get their advice about a decision to making the decision. And when I make the decision, I might take it to a couple of my very close inner circle people to say, "Shoot some holes in this. What am I missing? Give me your thoughts on some of this." But it's not about the decision. It's about, I've made the decision. Here's where I want to go. Now, help me see some blind spots that I have not been privy to about this. So that's a very different energetic piece. And I really struggle lately with religion and and I don't talk about this a lot, but some of the beliefs that we can't make a decision on our own, right? Like if I have the universe in me, and for me it's God and the Holy Spirit and Christ, but like if I have the Holy Spirit in me and I'm listening to that and I'm tapped in, who is someone else to say whether or not I should do it or not? So it's about having that belief and who you are. So take whatever belief system you have and put that into that. But it was interesting because I was doing a little bit of research on what really is belief, right? Like what makes it up? So belief really is accepting that something is true. So now you can see why imposter syndrome and some of these thoughts that spiral us get in the way, because our brain looks for ways to keep us safe. So if our brain is looking for ways to keep us safe and we're stepping into something that might feel a little scary, our brain is going to go into overload. So I'm going to talk briefly, and I've done this before, about brain science, very high level. If you think about your brain as a circle, and the top half is your conscious brain, and that conscious brain can accept messages, it can deflect messages, and it can create and innovate. Now, there's a whole lot more to it, but this is simplistic, right? Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess, either one, however you want to look at it, the messages that you are deflecting from your conscious brain still go into your subconscious brain. Now, many of us dream. I don't always have the luxury of remembering what my dreams are, but that is your subconscious processing as you're sleeping, right? Because our conscious brain is shut down. And there are other things out there like EMDR that people do that will help you uncover some things in your subconscious brain, that has your conscious brain doing some things to keep it busy. So this belief that something is true, how that happens is our subconscious brain receives a message, and that message then turns into a belief. And then that belief guides our actions and our habits. So if we want to change a belief, we have to, or a habit, excuse me, we have to go back and unwind what the belief is. And sometimes that belief can be a little sly. And I found for me, it's taken layers, right? And even to this point where having a realization a while back with a coach, that coached me, helping me uncover that I had a really deep-seated belief that there was something wrong with me. And this actually came out in many different forms. It affected my confidence, it affected the belief in what I am doing and who I'm being. And so when I figured out that that was not true, it completely changed everything. So these beliefs can be changed. And what happens is then we can step into things. So I want to ask a few questions, because if we accept something as true, it's important for us to uncover, is it really true? Right? Like that's part of what I ask when I start to have some what I call squirrely thoughts. And I have a stuffed squirrel. Some of you on the video may see him hiding behind that plant back there. And it's a reminder that when I start to squirrel out, that usually those things that I'm squirreling about, or those things that are lowering my vibration, are not truths. And so it's important to be self-aware. It's also important to have a coach. It's important to have people surrounding you that will ask you tough questions, right? To get you to think, and not in judgment, but to get you to think about what is really the trigger, what is really the belief that I have about something that is then stopping me, right? Are you a woman who's worn out from wearing all the hats that we wear, and you're really ready for a break? Well, join us for an empowering experience in beautiful Sandpoint, Idaho from October 24th to the 27th. This exclusive retreat is designed for women just like you. The Cast Your Vision retreat will have transformative workshops, expert guidance and coaching from me, and a supportive community to hold your hand along the way. Don't miss this opportunity to invest in yourself and your future. Get crystal clear on who you want to be and make that dream into a reality. Register today with the link in the show notes. Hope to see you there. When you think about belief, I want you to think about, if you remove all the hats you wear, because sometimes I'll say to people, who are you? And they'll start, and I did this too. They start this long laundry list of, I'm a mother, I'm a mother-in-law, I'm a grandmother, I'm a friend, I'm this and that. Well, really, okay, those are like roles that we play. But who are you? Who is the essence of who you are? What's, like that's the doing part. What are the values? Like, what do you hold most dear? What's most important to you? Now, a lot of people will say, well, my family, my faith, whatever is super important to me. Yeah, my family's important, but what's important to me is to show up in love. Right? Like I can have family and we can be super dysfunctional, and that's no fun, right? Like, so when I show up in love, then I'm able to show up as my favorite self. And then that's important to me, right? Like, so relationship is really valuable to me. But when you think about it, I want you to think about seriously what displays the essence of who you are, right? Like, I have a friend of mine, my friend Nicole, so many of you that are listening know her and will know exactly who I'm talking about. That when I think about someone that plays with abandon, right? Like doesn't care, has so much fun. And whenever you're around her, you have fun. I automatically think of her, and she's kind of my gauge, right? For this like essence of like I desire to have joy and fun, right? And so I look for where I have fun. I look for where the joy is in my life. And she's one person that brings a lot of joy to me. So it's really about thinking about who are you? What is the essence of who you are? The self-awareness is so important. And I will say, when I got my master's at Gonzaga, that was 2.5 years that was more digging around in myself and becoming more self-aware so that I was a better leader than any other time in my life. Now, self awareness is really, really important. And I can be aware of certain things. I can be aware of where I don't have a voice. I can be aware of certain things. But what's then important is knowing who you are. Those two things, some people say are the same. I don't. I think they're different. I can be aware of what triggers me, but unless I start to dig into knowing who I am and what's important, and then do I want to change that or am I okay with that? That's knowing who I am. And once I know who I am, that leads me to be in that mature adult that I've talked about the inner family, how you have the young child, which is emotion, you have the adolescent who is resilient, but also the one that can be a little sassy, the one that feels like she has to justify all the time. And then you have the critical parent, the one that always is trying to keep you safe and so is really pulling at you to stop when you want to move forward. And the mature adult then is knowing enough about myself, knowing what I'm available for, what I'm not available for, what works for me, what doesn't work for me, puts me in that mature adult. Now, I want to give you some examples of that. Many of you have heard me say I don't like the word boundaries. Now, there are times when it is appropriate for people to set boundaries because they have been in situations where they have been in fear for a lot of their life, that they don't trust themselves. Like, and boundaries are created from fear, right? Like we create these boundaries based on that. Self-sabotage. I don't like that word because it creates guilt and shame because we're all brilliant. And if we knew what we were doing to stop ourselves, we would stop it. Or we sometimes do that, but we're making the choice, right? What I like to call it is resistance. So when I'm resisting something, when I'm setting up a boundary or a wall between myself and spirit, or a wall between myself and someone else, when I want to control everything, right? Like no one controls anything. That's a perception. But when I want to control, that comes from fear. When I know who I am, so when you know who you are, then you know what you're available for, what you're not available for, and then I don't feel the need to justify. And so, for instance, if someone asks me to do something, I had this happen the other day. I had a friend that had overcommitted herself, and she reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you mind taking this? There's an event that we're doing in town with a board I'm on. Would you mind taking this?" And I just rejoined the board a couple of months ago. And I just simply responded, "I'm sorry, I'm not able to do that. I have a couple of things coming up that are preventing me from doing that." Now, even the things that I said about I have some things coming up, that's my adolescent. I can just say, I'm not available right now for that. Right. And whenever you feel yourself trying to justify, that's your adolescence. So stay in that mature adult. Many times people are afraid to say no to things. So I'll say, if I truly am okay, potentially doing something in the future, I'll say, you know what? I'm not available for that right now. Ask me again in the future. But if I'm not, then I'm going to say, I'm sorry, that's not something that I can do, or I'm not available for that. Right. So when we think about this idea of justifying, when we look really deeply into what we might be resisting, with an openness to learn more about others and ourselves, then we're coming from a place of love, right? So when I'm in my mature adult, I'm coming from this place of love. So I don't feel the need to justify. I don't feel like, when I'm in resistance, I feel like I do a pretty good job, not always, and I have people that help point this out to me. I try to go back and think, okay, am I open to learning about this? What am I resisting? How can I go about this? When I'm in love, I'm not so concerned about being right, and I'm not concerned about being in control of everything. That is coming from love. The other side of that with the law of polarity is coming from fear. Now, some people call this when we're not feeling like we have to control everything, when we step into things without resistance, when we don't feel like we have to justify, when we're able to speak our truth and say, I'm not available for that. No, thank you. Whatever the case would be, then that some people call that in flow. And so, how do I know things are in flow? Well, for me, I lose track of time. I find immense satisfaction from it. I find joy. I feel fulfilled. And interestingly enough, I have this Aura ring. So if anybody's interested, let me know. I can give you my link to save a little bit of money. But this Aura ring has really helped me too, because it shows when I'm engaged, when I'm in restorative, when I'm stressed. And what I find is that when I'm in alignment and I'm coming from joy and I'm feeling fulfillment and I'm feeling these things in love, then what happens is I'm in that engaged state. But when I'm not in that and I'm out of alignment, I get into more of the stress state. So it's been really interesting to watch. So, how do you help yourself tap into love, right? Because we know logically love, but what does love really feel like? So, what does it feel like for you? Right? When I think of love, I think of my family. And in particular, I think of my grandsons, Carter and Bowden. They're just pure love and joy, right? Like they make me laugh. I just feel like my whole heart gets bigger. And so I want you to think, because I feel that when I think of them, my heart, like I joke because I'm a big The Grinch That Stole Christmas fan, that when he says my heart grew 3 sizes too big, like being a Gaga, my heart just feels like it has expanded. And this idea of love has even expanded further than what I could possibly even imagine. And so when I want to get in tune with my heart and feel from a place of love and give from a place of love, that's what I do is I think about the two of them. So I want you to think about what brings you joy, or what or who do you think about when you think about love? And then I want you to think about, and not just think about, really drop down into your heart space. How does that make you feel? What emotion comes to you when you, like I told you, I feel it in my heart, right? I feel this warmth and I feel it in my body. So ask yourself, what emotion is tied to this? Where do I feel it in my body? And I'm asking this really because when you find yourself in fear, you can tap into this experience or person to drop into more of that love space, because you're going to act or react differently from a place of love than you are if you're in reaction, parasympathetic, fight or flight mode, right? So it's important when it comes to belief, because when we know who we are, why we do something, or what we do from an intention perspective of it, how we're doing it, how we conduct ourselves in life, and how I do business, then I can come into it with a higher, stronger belief because I'm clear about it. And that helps me come from a place of love. Also, a place of love for myself. I was just having a meeting with a client, and they were discussing with me about how they were struggling with when a client couldn't make it because they had work or this or that, and they would switch their schedule to accommodate. And it's okay to accommodate once in a while. That's not what I'm saying. I accommodate once in a while. But when it's a pattern outside of how you want to do business, then you have to ask yourself, why am I accepting that? Why am I not showing love and compassion to myself when I've set up some structure that works for me and I know it works for me? So, as an example, I ski on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings. I let very few things get in the way of that. In the summer, I've been spending some Tuesday afternoons and Thursday afternoons with my grandsons. I let very few things get in the way of that, right? Because I want to stay in that place of love. I hold that space to say, I'm not available to meet at that time. So part of the fear comes from that we're going to lose the client, the customer's not going to be happy with us, they're not going to come back to us. Well, here's what I have to say to that. Is that really a person that you want? And secondly, the people that do vibrate at the same vibration as you will come to you. So I just want you to kind of use that as an example of like knowing how you do business is empowering because it gives you confidence and it gives you belief. You know, I had another client I was talking to that owns a very busy business. And I suggested to them that instead of opening at 9 o'clock, that they open at 10 or 11. And at first she was, whoa, I can't do that. And I'm like, just try it and see what happens. She actually made more money, had more business, and was able to set aside then that hour. I think it was an hour, might have been two, in the morning that she could get some of the tasks that she needed to get done that were uninterruptible. Right. So it created balance in her life. And when we feel balanced and we feel like we're coming from a place of love, then we're in flow and things we're showing up as our best self. So if I'm not holding and showing love for myself, then I'm not showing up as my favorite self for my clients. So keep that in mind, like, and what I would say to you is find a coach, find people in your life that if you are struggling with belief in what you're doing, find some people that believe in that and help have them lift you up, borrow some of that belief. I say that to almost every client, right? If you're struggling with believing in yourself, borrow some of that belief that I have in you because I have belief in the people I work with. If I didn't, I wouldn't be working with them. So, why is it important to believe in yourself? It's important because it creates how you act and react in the world. It's that whole belief system in your subconscious mind. And so really take some time. I know as women, I struggled with this because I was in mom mode, like a lot of hours of the day. But even it even impacts how you parent. It impacts how you are in relationship with other people. So take the time to like really investigate, who am I? If I'm not mom, if I'm not the business owner, if I'm not the boss or the leader, or if I'm not the PTA president, or if I'm not the board member, like whatever those roles are that you have, strip all of those hats off or masks, whatever you associate with, and then ask yourself, who am I? And then create that belief for yourself. Folks, that's it for today. And I will see you next week. Make it a fantastic day. Thanks. That's a wrap for this conversation. I'm so glad you've joined us. Remember to subscribe to the podcast so you can catch all of our future episodes, and visit us at thelituplife.com for details on how you can become part of the Lit Up Life community. A quick shout out to my friend Jackie Wilson and her friends, the creators of our amazing theme music. Thanks so much for allowing us to share this perfect song with our listeners. Looking forward to having you listen in to our next episode.
See the